Alright, so get this. My brother, he was supposed to be in an arranged marriage. Well, unfortunately, he passed away. It was an accident, and we did not tell the family that we were going to marry off that, well, he passed away, and they'd never met him before, so hey, I took his spot without telling them, and the guilt is eating me alive because I'm not my brother. I've been living under a shadow for the past 4 years. An imposter, a liar. My family knows, but the rest of the world sees me as my older brother, Liam. I'm married to a woman who believes she's wedded to Liam, and our child calls me father, but recognizes me as somebody else. I recently became a father, and the guilt and anxiety are tearing me apart, but I'm trapped, bound by a contract with my family with another year to go while they try to work out an escape plan. I realize this situation sounds ludicrous, but it was born out of desperation, out of familial love. I'm from a culture where arranged marriages are common, although they're not forced and can be quite successful. My parents and uncles run a prosperous business, and my siblings Liam, and my younger sister Naomi and I, and Oliver, well, we were all well educated. Liam, the eldest, was groomed to take over the business, and I pursued higher studies overseas. Studying biology, a dream I cherished since childhood. Life was good. We were a well-off family, bound by love and respect. However, beneath the apparent prosperity, the foundation of our existence was crumbling. Our family's business was in jeopardy, struck by the volatile markets and poor investments, but I was oblivious to this until it was too late. 3 years into my PhD, I received news that Liam was getting married. I was surprised but happy for him. He had always been the traditional one, respecting our customs. His betrothed, Maya, hailed from a wealthy family overseas. He was ecstatic, and their conversations made me believe he found a compatible partner. Then tragedy struck. Liam died in an accident, just a fortnight before his wedding, and the loss was immense and unbearable. In the midst of our mourning, my mother divulged a devastating secret: our family was in grave financial trouble. Liam's marriage to Maya was supposed to secure the future of our business and, consequently, our family. You see, I was presented with an unthinkable proposition. With Liam gone and the wedding imminent, my parents asked me to step into, well, my brother's shoes. They reasoned that I looked very similar to him and Maya. Having only met him a few times, would not, well, notice the difference. I was horrified, feeling like I was being asked to desecrate my brother's memory, but the desperation in my parents' eyes and the fears for our family's future persuaded me to agree. A year later, Maya and I had a son, Jack. While I care for my child, every time he calls me Dad, the guilt just eats me alive. I'm living a lie, and now my son's wrapped up in it too. I'm exhausted mentally and emotionally, and the guilt, the fear of being discovered, the pressure of living another man's life are becoming unbearable. And yet, there's no easy way out. I fear what might happen to my family if the truth is revealed. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is that of an intense one. It looks like OP got trapped into pretending to be his deceased brother. Oh boy, I can see how that could turn disastrous. The next update is titled 4 months later, so let's go ahead and jump into that update. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself today, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing for daily videos. Update number 1, 4 months later. Each day is a challenge, an act to convince not just the world but myself of my false identity. On the surface, I've kept up the facade quite well. Maya seems content in our marriage and our business has regained stability. But beneath the calm exterior, I feel like I'm drowning. The guilt has now intensified to such an extent that I see Liam in my dreams. Sometimes he's supportive, sometimes accusing. I've spoken to a therapist, of course, under the guise of seeking help for bereavement issues. But the truth is, I'm dealing with an existential crisis, a constant battle with my own identity. I've tried numerous times to hint at the truth to Maya, but I always pull back at the last moment. The thought of her reaction and The possibility of her leaving me and this potential ruin it could bring upon my family is daunting. My family, on the other hand, despite being aware of my internal torment, encourages me to continue with the charade. My parents reassure me, albeit uncomfortably, that we're close to figuring out an escape plan that could save both of our family's businesses and my marriage. They also frequently remind me of the positive impact Liam's, or rather my, marriage to Maya has had on our business. But as each day passes, the line between Liam and me continue to blur. When people look at me, they see my brother. When Maya and Jack express their love, it's for Liam. When I close a business deal, it's celebrated as Liam's achievement. This crushing burden of leaving a double life just feels like a life sentence. Yet, there are moments of solace. Moments when Jack and his innocent eyes hold my hand, or when Maya with her warm smile whispers words of love into my ear. In those fleeting moments, I find some semblance of happiness, but they quickly evaporate as the reality sets in. To complicate matters, I began to develop genuine feelings for Maya. I care for her as a friend, as a partner, and as the mother of my son. But this only adds to my guilt, as I feel I'm betraying her with this massive lie that forms the foundation of our relationship, and as my inner conflicts grow, I fear my secret might explode and shatter the life I've created. But the question is, do I have the right to unravel everything? Am I the a-hole for continuing to live this lie, to protect my family and to some extent Maya and Jack from potential ruin? Deep down, I know that this is not sustainable. I long for the day when I can just be Oliver again, but I'm terrified at the potential fallout. The longer I live as Liam, the harder it becomes to separate his life from mine. The marriage is becoming a reality, and I'm losing sight of where Liam ends and Oliver begins. This is not just about me anymore. It's about a family, a business, a wife, and a child who all depend on Liam. I fear I might lose everything once the truth is revealed, but can I continue to sacrifice my identity for the sake of everybody else? It's a heavy burden I bear, and I'm not sure how much longer I can carry it. The deception feels like a dark cloud always looming. Despite this, I also see the bright spots, the positive impacts my actions have had, but does the good really outweigh the bad? So I ask you guys, am I the a-hole for living a lie? I need to know, even if it's meant to save the ones that I love. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here again, just to report to you that the next update is insane. As we see Oliver navigate this delicate web of deception, he faces an existential crisis and struggles with the repercussions of his actions. But he also believes he's protecting his family and loved ones from potential ruin. In the light of these circumstances, the question arises, is he the a-hole for living a lie even if it was meant to save ones that he loves? Well, guys, the next update might blow your mind because Maya stumbles upon a piece of evidence that hints at Oliver's true identity. Well, let's just hop right in it, shall we? Update number 2. She found out. One day, the unthinkable happened. My charade came crashing down when Maya found some old photos from my college days that had somehow missed our meticulous cooling. She was smart, and she put 2 and 2 together. She realized that the man she thought was Liam was actually me, Oliver. I had no choice but to confess everything, laying our family's financial struggles, my fear and guilt at her feet. The fallout was immediate, and it was brutal. Maya was livid. Understandably so. Feeling deeply betrayed, she was hurt not just because of my deception, but because she had developed a genuine affection for Liam, who, by the way, was actually Oliver, aka me. This whole time, she was loving a ghost, a man who no longer existed. The love and trust that we had built, the life we shared, all of it came tumbling down. In the ensuing days, Maya decided to leave, taking Jack with her. I did not contest it. I understood her anger, her need for space, and she moved back to her family's home overseas, leaving me behind and my world shattered once again. The loss of Maya and Jack, my separation from them, was a low point in my life. I'm talking about the absolute rock bottom. I'd never felt more alone, more devastated. I fell into a deep depression, and my days filled with guilt, remorse, and heartache. I could not bear to look at myself in the mirror. The man who had deceived the woman he loved and his own son. My family was equally devastated. They had not foreseen the consequences of our desperate plan, and they regretted their part in it. Business matters aside, they could see the deep pain I was in. They could not deny their role in causing it. However, despite the deep despair I was feeling, a tiny ray of hope emerged. For the first time in 4 years, I was Oliver again. No more lies, no more charades. I was free from the constant pretense, free to be myself. I decided to take this chance to start over, to rebuild myself. I started attending therapy sessions more regularly, this time fully open about my identity and situation. It was an uphill journey, full of painful self-reflection and acceptance, but gradually, I began to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. I was slowly learning to forgive myself and to deal with the loss of my relationship with Maya and Jack. I also realized that Oliver, who embarked on this journey, was not the same Oliver that came out the other end. I'd grown, evolved. I'd faced the worst-case scenario, and although it hurt like hell, it did not destroy me. I was stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. I understood now the value of honesty, of being true to myself and to others. During this time, I kept in touch with Maya, as difficult as it was. We maintained communication for Jack's sake. I told her about my therapy, my efforts to better myself, and I expressed my deepest regrets. My wish for a chance to prove that I could be a better person and a better father. I could sense her anger subsiding, replaced with a sense of hurtful understanding, maybe even a hint of forgiveness, but I knew it would take time. Perhaps a lot of time, before we could mend our relationship. So here I am, Oliver, once again. Humbled and scarred by my experiences, the journey to redemption is far from over, but I'm ready to face whatever lies ahead. I don't know what the future holds for Maya, Jack, and me, but I'm hopeful, I'm determined to prove that I can be a better person for myself, for them, and the memory of Liam. Life has taught me that honesty, integrity, and authenticity are the cornerstones of any relationship, personal or professional. It's a hard-earned lesson, one that cost me my relationship with Maya and temporarily distanced me from my son. But it's a lesson I'm grateful for nonetheless. Well, while I'm working on myself, I'm also working towards making amends. With the help of my family, I've started to transparently tackle the issues plaguing our business. We're restructuring, exploring ways to generate income without resorting to deception or manipulation. Yeah, it's a challenge, but one that we are tackling head-on, with honesty and integrity, right there at the forefront. Slowly but surely, we're getting back on our feet. The business, once burdened by poor decisions and dishonesty, is now starting to show signs of growth again. There's a long way to go, but we're heading in the right direction. Together as a family. This time we're creating a legacy that Liam would be proud of, one based on truth and honor. Meanwhile, I know what you're probably thinking. My relationship with Maya and Jack. Well, it's slowly growing and evolving. Our communication is gradually becoming less strained. Maya has started to share little updates about Jack. A drawing he made, a milestone he reached. I treasure these precious insights into my son's life, although I miss him dearly every day. These small connections provide me with comfort and hope. Maya and I have even started to have some sincere, heartfelt discussions. I've apologized countless times, expressing my regret, my guilt, and she has started to respond with quite the understanding. I'm well aware that it does not erase what I've done, but it's a start. A tiny step towards healing and possible reconciliation. I've also made a promise to myself just to be honest with Jack once he's old enough to understand. He deserves to know the truth. I am not Liam. I am Oliver. Well, he needs to know about his father's identity and the circumstances surrounding his life. While it's a conversation I dread, I know it's essential for his understanding and for our future relationship. To anybody looking from the outside, my life might seem like it's a mess. But to me, it's a life being slowly pieced back together one day at a time. It's a life of nothing more than second chances, of lessons learned the hard way. It's a life where Oliver can finally live as Oliver, flawed, striving, and hopeful. I say my name proud. I am Oliver. Well, this story was just wild. I mean, even being in that perspective or being in that view, it would be so nuts. Imagine, your brother, somebody that you deeply love, passes away from an accident, and well, you have to fill the void to help and protect your family so they can get some money so they can survive and live. So you go ahead with the arranged marriage and pretend to be your brother. Well, we saw how this played on OP's mental health, and it was eating him alive. All I can say is, luckily, at the end of the story, it seemed like OP's, well, his wife, who she thought was a whole nother man, well, they start to work things together because they did fall in love, though, and that's important. So I want to know if you guys were in this position. What would you do if you were OP? Drop your comments down below. Let's talk about it. I have a friend. He's my neighbor, and we've been good friends ever since I moved in. But ever since the pandemic, when I had to stay at home, I never went back to work in the office. I just kept working from home. It works out great for me, and my boss doesn't seem to care since I work in IT. Well, my neighbor, the one I said I was friends with, he's not so happy I get to work from home while he's forced to go into work. So, he does something that's not very neighborly, and he absolutely gets the cops involved. In the tradition of Am I the A-hole, this is my story. I'm writing this for a sanity check, validation, advice, and perhaps even the solidarity that comes from sharing an experience like mine. I am an IT professional who started working from home when the pandemic began in 2020. Like many others, my employer found the remote work setup to be more efficient and productive. So they continued this policy even after the world returned to some semblance of normalcy. I personally loved it too. No more commutes, more time for my hobbies, and I could be around my pets literally all day. This was until my neighbor, let's call him Dan. Dan starts making my days a living hell. See, Dan is a middle-aged man, working a regular 9-to-5 job in construction, a stark contrast to my virtual occupation. He leaves his house every morning and returns in the evening, visibly worn out and tired. When I first started working from home, he seemed cool about it. We'd share neighborly pleasantries and occasional small talk, and I had no inkling of the storm that was a-brewing. Problems started innocuously enough. My Wi-Fi began to act up, becoming frustratingly slow, sometimes dropping completely in the middle of important tasks. Well, as an IT guy, I thought it was a technical issue and spent hours trying to troubleshoot. Even getting my internet provider involved after several days of this, I started noticing a pattern. You see, my internet interruptions often coincided with Dan's return from work. Skeptical, I decided to set up a network monitor to track any unusual activity. And to my utter disbelief, I found that every single time my internet went down, there was an apparent signal jamming device at play. It was a stretch, but I could not help connecting the dots to Dan's return timing. The situation escalated even further. One day, during a significant client presentation, I see police cars pulling up my driveway, lights flashing and sirens blaring. My heart starts to pound, and I fling open the door to a stern officer claiming they'd received a noise complaint from my address. A noise complaint? I live alone with 2 cats who sleep most of the day. My workplace is quiet, very quiet, with little more than a soft clatter of my keyboard strokes. The officer, while understanding, mentioned the complaint came from a neighbor who reported loud music and possible illegal activity. I was shocked. And guess who it was? The only person that came to mind was Dan. This pattern, it just repeated over the next few weeks. Unexplained Wi-Fi disruptions, noise complaints, and even accusations of running an unregistered business from my home. Dan, who was always around during these incidents, feigned innocence and concern, asking if everything was okay whenever we bumped into each other. Finally, I decided to confront him. Dan's reaction was something between indifference and subtle joy. He did not admit to anything, but a smirk on his face told a different story, and he said, "You know, some of us have to go out and earn a living, not send pajama jams all day." Well, that was weird. His words struck me. Was he doing all this simply because he's jealous of my work-from-home setup? Was he attempting to make my life difficult because he resented his own darn job? At this point, I'm left pondering if I am the a-hole here. Is it my fault for working from home, thus sparking this neighborly feud? Should I take the high road, move to another location, or should I stand my ground, defend my rights, and seek a way to stop this madness without escalating the situation further? Well, I leave it to you, dear readers, to judge. Am I the a-hole, and what should my next step be? Rest assured, I will keep you updated. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. It's been a while since we've had a neighborly feud story on the channel, and oh boy, could you imagine somebody being so desperate of your job that they literally go out of their way to mess with your internet? I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon because there is multiple updates to hop into. I'm excited about it, guys. If you're new to the channel, go ahead, click that subscribe button for daily videos. And let's see what the heck Dan has been up to. Thanks everyone for the input on my last post. A few weeks have passed since I first shared my story, and much has transpired since then. I felt it was time for an update and some further insights into this strange neighborly feud. I decided to gather more concrete evidence before taking any legal action against Dan. Installing security cameras around my property was the first move, providing a visual record of any unusual occurrences, and secondly, I increased the scrutiny of my Wi-Fi monitoring, determined to establish a firm link between Dan's arrival and the signal disruptions. Within a week, my cameras picked up a peculiar habit of Dan's. Almost like clockwork, he would come home from work and, for no discernible reason, loiter around my property, often standing suspiciously close to my Wi-Fi router's exterior wall. Coincidence or not, this was exactly when my internet disruptions happened. The network monitor, too, showed signs of jamming during these episodes. Around the same time, the police visits continued, escalating to complaints of, I quote, suspicious individuals entering and exiting the premises. This was absurd, as the most suspicious visitor I had was a pizza delivery guy on a Friday night. Despite the mounting pressure, I felt validated. There was clear evidence of Dan's malicious activities. With a newfound resolve, I decided it was time to take this evidence to the authorities. I arranged a meeting with the local police department, presenting my findings and explaining the situation in great detail. The officers seemed surprised, albeit sympathetic, and assured me they would investigate the matter thoroughly. They advised me to refrain from confronting Dan directly until they could substantiate my claims to prevent any potential escalation. Well, I adhered to their instructions and kept a low profile, continuing my work and trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. In the meantime, my resentment towards Dan grew, fueled by his continued smugness whenever we happened to cross paths. Another week passed. One morning, I was dealing with yet another unexpected internet outage. I saw a couple of police approaching Dan's house this time. It was a satisfying sight to see, although I felt a pang of uneasiness not knowing what would transpire, and the officer spent quite some time at Dan's. And I could see Dan's growing agitation from my window. After a while, they left, leaving an unusually quiet Dan behind. And a few hours later, an officer came to my house and informed me they found a signal jamming device at Dan's, and just as I suspected. They also mentioned that they'd been monitoring any future noise complaints more closely given the circumstances. I felt an immense relief wash over me. Finally, it seemed like the reign of terror was coming to an end, but Was it too early to celebrate? As of now, my internet has been steady and there have been no random police visits. Dan, however, still lives next door and there's a tension in the air that was not there before. His previous smugness had been replaced with a cold silence, so once again, dear readers, I leave it to you. Should I be satisfied with this small victory or brace myself for a potential backlash? Is there more I should be doing in this situation? As always, am I the a-hole for bringing this on to Dan, making things more uncomfortable for the both of us? Well, stay tuned. For the next update, I have a feeling this is not the end of our saga. Final update. Guys, I just need to thank you again for the overwhelming response to my previous post. Now, I bring the most recent and dare I say dramatic developments of my ongoing saga with Dan, my less than neighborly neighbor. In the weeks following the police's discovery of Dan's signal jamming device, life started to regain some semblance of normalcy. The police visit stopped, my Wi-Fi was stable than ever, and for a while it seemed like Dan had decided to give this petty war against me up. Yet, the tension between us never dissipated. Our once cordial exchanges have devolved into cold nods, or more often determined ignorance. Every time I crossed paths with him, I felt a sense of foreboding, as if Dan was harboring resentment and was waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike back. One evening, while I was settling down after a long day of work, I noticed a flicker in my living room lights. Before I could investigate, boom, the power went out. Not just in my house, but the entire block was submerged with darkness. I stepped out to find my neighbors emerging from their house confused and concerned. That's when I noticed Dan, over there standing on his front porch, and a sinister grin spread across his face as he looked directly at me. It sent a chill down my spine. The power outage I felt was not a mere coincidence. Could Dan be retaliating? I decided to stay vigilant. The power was restored by morning, but it was the first of many outages to follow. They were sporadic and unpredictable, causing significant disruption to my work. As you can imagine, my suspicions grew. I had no evidence, nothing linking these incidents to Dan. I was starting to feel helpless, unsure of how to proceed. One night, as another blackout plunged the neighborhood into utter darkness, I saw a dim light emanating from Dan's backyard. Curiosity piqued, I guess you could say. I carefully made my way over to see what was happening. Concealed behind my fence, I peered over to find Dan, tinkering with what looked like a large machine. Partially illuminated by a flashlight, it was a bizarre sight, and, on a hunch, I decided to record it on my phone. The next day, I took the recording to the police, explaining my suspicions about Dan's possible involvement in the power outages. They seemed skeptical but agreed to investigate, likely motivated by the persistent and unexplained power disruptions affecting the block. Well, get this. A couple days later, a swarm of police officers surround Dan's house. This time, they had a search warrant. They spent hours at his property, coming out eventually with a very large convoluted device, the same one I'd seen Dan working on during the blackouts. Well, guess what? As it turned out, Dan had constructed a makeshift EMP generator, capable of causing localized power outage. It was a shocking revelation. His resentment had pushed him into illegal activities, causing inconvenience not only to me, but the entire neighborhood. Well, it's safe to say Dan was taken into custody, and an eerie silence fell over the neighborhood. The power outages stopped, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of true peace. I could not help but feel a pang of guilt for setting this chain of events into motion. Yet, I also knew I had no choice. In the aftermath, I still ask myself, was I the a-hole for making a quiet, albeit annoying neighbor's life taking such a drastic turn? Or was I merely a victim defending his livelihood? And what happens next, now that the neighbor's menacingness, has landed him behind bars? I guess you can say only time will tell. Yeah, so stories like this just confirm to me People have way too much time on their hand. I mean, building a homemade EMP just to bug your neighbor and knock off his Wi-Fi? Come on. You have to have better things to do than be so petty. I mean, maybe if there was really a reason to hate your neighbor to do something so crazy as making a bomb or EMP or whatever the heck he was up to. But the fact that all the OP of the story did was work from home? Wow, that just shows how unstable the neighbor truly is. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this story. Drop your opinions in the comment section. Jake, the love of my life, my high school sweetheart, we've been through so much. He was my first kiss, my first, well, everything. So imagine my surprise when I find out that he's been cheating on me. Oh, but it's not just your run-of-the-mill affair, oh no. He's sleeping with his professor. I've never been one to air my personal life out in public, let alone on the internet. Yet here I am, breaking my silence. Before you judge me, hear me out because I need to know. Am I the a-hole? As a little bit of background, my name's OP, a journalism major in my third year at a local college. My boyfriend Jake and I have been together since high school. We were each other's first love, first kiss, first everything. Jake was so innocent, kind, and respectful. He was different from the rest, which drew me towards him. A couple weeks ago, my rose-tinted glasses shattered, and I discovered that Jake was having an affair with his college professor. She's 47. He's 21. The news hit me like a bolt out of the blue, and the idea seemed too absurd to even be real. But it was. And, well, caught in a whirlwind of disbelief, anger, and sadness, I decided to take matters into my own hands. So what did I do? I compiled their text messages, every single one I found, which, by the way, I stumbled upon accidentally on Jake's phone, and published them in our school newspaper. I did it without malicious intent, hoping it would lead to the rightful consequences for such an unethical relationship. Well, long story short, the aftermath was severe, leading to the professor's dismissal. So, I have to ask you guys, am I the a-hole for my actions? I will update you guys soon enough, but I just need to know. Am I the a-hole? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is a very interesting situation where OP found out the love of her life, the first kiss, first boyfriend, first everything, was cheating on her. But it was not your average run-of-the-mill ordeal. Oh no, it was with a much older professor, who, by the way, just got exposed, and we're about to see exactly what happened because update number 1, it says, day after the exposure. Hey guys, I'm going to keep my update short and sweet, so I'll start with the first one, the day after the exposure. The newspaper article blew up. Students, faculty, parents were all talking about it. Well, I'll save you some time and let you know. The professor was immediately suspended pending further investigation, and Jake was called in for questioning. Our relationship took an unexpected hit. Jake accused me of public humiliation, but in my view, he had wronged me first. My friends were supportive, yet some suggested that what I did was way too harsh, but who else was I to react? Well, I don't know, I'll update you guys again. Let me know your thoughts. Update number 2, 1 week later. So here's the next mini update. It seems the official investigation they did on the professor led to her termination. It was revealed that she had abused her position and engaged in a relationship that was not ethical, but also illegal due to the power dynamic. Jake was suspended for the rest of the semester, and after that, a wave of guilt washed over me. Yeah, I understand, Jake cheated, but did he deserve this? I had the thought of retracting the article, but it was too late. The damage was done. Update number 3, 2 weeks later. Hey, so Jack just moved out of our shared apartment. He would not meet my eyes with his, but he apologized for his actions. I saw a glimpse of the old Jake, the one I fell in love with. But I knew things would never be the same, and I was approached by local media which caught wind of the story. I declined the interview request, hoping to maintain what privacy I had left. I was also subjected to an investigation for my role in the publication of the text messages. It was stressful, but I stood by my actions. Update number 4, 1 month later, and this one is about the repercussions. Well, I'll be honest with you guys here in this update. The repercussions of my decision hit me hard. I lost my position at the school newspaper for publishing private messages without consent. Yeah, Jake and I were over, and I was in therapy for the emotional trauma. I regretted my actions, but I knew I could not change the past. I had to move forward. The professor was charged with misconduct and was legally barred from teaching. Jake was allowed to return to college the following semester, but his reputation was forever tarnished. He decided to transfer to another institution to avoid further humiliation. In the aftermath, I could not help but feel that I played a part in destroying 2 lives. I was still grappling with whether it was the right thing to do or not. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think it was right for me to do it? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So, I thought that was the end of the story, but in the comment section, I found a final update, which was released 6 months after all the other updates. And guys, sit back because this is a twist you did not see coming. In an unexpected twist, Jake sued me. That's right. Invasion of privacy and defamation's what they're calling it. A part of me was still struggling with guilt, and the lawsuit added salt to the wound. The news of the lawsuit sent shockwaves through the college and our mutual friends, once again dragging my name through the mud. I felt cornered and defeated. I felt like a pariah, an outcast. My trust in people, especially in romantic relationship, was severely affected. It was difficult to study, to write, to do anything. I felt like I was in a never-ending spiral of despair. During this time, a friend introduced me to her aunt, a prominent lawyer specializing in privacy rights. She was a strong, independent woman who commanded respect in every room that she entered. She listened to my story with a sympathetic ear and agreed to take my case pro bono. Meanwhile, the professor contacted me. That's right. I was weary, expecting an angry rant or a threat. Instead, she apologized. She even confessed to her actions, admitted that she had manipulated Jake, and she asked me for forgiveness. I was absolutely speechless. It felt almost surreal, and it was hard for me to process her words. The lawsuit dragged on for months. It was an absolutely grueling process filled with fear, anxiety, stress, you name it. It affected my academics, my mental health, and my social life. The legal intricacies were difficult to understand, but my lawyer was a beacon of hope. Then the day of the final hearing arrived. My heart pounded into my chest as I sat in the courtroom waiting for the verdict. Jake's lawyers presented him as the victim, a young innocent student exploited by a predatory professor and wronged by a vindictive girlfriend. But then, my lawyer had her turn. She presented the professor's apology and confession, highlighted Jake's responsibility as an adult in the situation, and finally, defended my actions as a desperate cry for justice. The courtroom was silent as she spoke, and her voice echoed with conviction and resonated with my own heart. After what felt like an eternity, the judge cleared his throat, and the verdict was in my favor. The judge deemed that my actions, though controversial, were an expression of personal distress and a call for accountability against a figure of authority abusing her power. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I felt vindicated, albeit emotionally exhausted. This victory did not erase the trauma or the pain, but hey, it was a step closer. The news spread, and there was an outpouring of support from my college community. I was offered my position back at the school newspaper, which I accepted. I began to rebuild my life one piece at a time. 6 months after the publication of those text messages, my life was irrevocably changed. I had gone through hell and come back alive. I was stronger. I was wiser. This experience taught me about the complexities of relationships, the power dynamics that could exist, and of course, the importance of standing up for what you believe in, even when it feels like the world's against you. So I ask you guys one more time. Am I the a-hole? And I still struggle with that question. Yeah, I exposed an unethical relationship, and yeah, I sparked a series of unfortunate events, but in the end, I became a catalyst for change both in my own life and in my college community. Final update. As life continued to move forward, I found myself unexpectedly crossing paths with the professor who had played such a significant role in the turmoil of my life. It happened one afternoon as I was grabbing some groceries at a local store. There she was, standing at the checkout counter scanning items with a forced smile. The years had not been kind to her. I could not help but feel a mix of emotion, anger, sadness, and a hint of satisfaction. Part of me wanted to confront her, just to unleash all the pent-up frustration and pain that I endured. But another part of me, the wiser part, knew that it was time to let go, just to move on from the past and focus on my own healing. As I continued my shopping, curiosity got the better of me. I wondered what had become of her life after the scandal. It turned out that her career had taken a nosedive. With the termination from our college, her reputation was tarnished, making it nearly impossible for her to find another professor job, or even a teaching job. Forced to make ends meet, she had taken a job at a grocery store as a stark contrast to the position of authority she once held. Moreover, her personal life had crumbled as well. Her husband, who had stood by her during the scandal, had finally discovered her infidelity. He filed for divorce, leaving her with nothing but the bitter consequences of her actions. Yes, it was a reminder that betrayal carries a heavy price, and nobody is exempt from its reach. In that moment, I felt a twinge of empathy. I remembered the remorse in her eyes when she had reached out to apologize. Perhaps her own suffering was a form of penance, a harsh reminder of the pain she had caused others, including me. As I left the store, I made a silent promise to myself to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me for so long. Revenge had finally run its course, and I realized that it only perpetuated the cycle of hurt. I would focus on my own healing and growth, leaving the past behind me. In the months that followed, I poured myself into my studies, dedicating my energy to my journalism career. I sought solace in writing and used my experience to raise awareness about ethical boundaries and power dynamics in relationships. The lesson I had learned, though painful, became a source of strength and inspiration. As time passed, I discovered a newfound sense of happiness and inner peace. I surrounded myself with supportive friends, even pursued my passions, and embraced the opportunities that came along. Yeah, the scars remained, but they no longer defined who I was. So in the end, what had begun as a tale of innocence and betrayal evolved into a story of resilience and personal growth. Life deals you blows sometimes, and while the wounds do take time to heal, they ultimately led me to a place of strength and self-discovery. Today, I stand here, a strong version of myself, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. The journey has not been easy, but I'm grateful for the lessons learned and the person I've become. My hope is that others can find solace and inspiration in my story, knowing that even in the face of heartbreak, we have the power to rise above, and we can create our own narratives of redemption. So yeah, this is the final update, a testament of the strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of forgiveness. Okay, so it turns out that the professor, she ends up working at a grocery store and her husband divorces her and she can never teach again, all because she decides to make a mistake and sleep with somebody that is her student. Ugh, could you imagine the nerve to do that while married? And not only that, not only did she do that with such a younger student, but she did it with a student who had a long-term girlfriend. My goodness. Guys, how would you go about handling this situation? Say, for instance, you're the girlfriend. Do you go to the school newspaper and do all this? Or maybe, do you try to sit down with the two people involved and talk mano-y-mano? Drop your comments, let me know exactly the route that you would go. Thank you for joining me on today's video. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.